Yeah, we were just talking about the Congress coming back in town today, and their agenda, which is to destroy everything that's been accomplished over the last 50 years, basically. But they didn't even wait until Congress convenes today to take action. The House Republicans to take action yesterday, getting rid of the Office of Congressional Ethics. Well, who needs an Office of Congressional Ethics, right?
The problem with Congress that I hear when I travel the country is that it's just too freaking ethical.
Yeah.
Just they follow the rules a little too much. You got to loosen things up, shake things up to make America great again.
We don't want that. We need some greed and corruption.
We do need a little greed and corruption.
Well, I guess we're going to see more of it now. But how important is this office?
Well, this office, came about in 2008 in the aftermath of the Abramoff scandal, in the aftermath of the Mark Foley scandal, as we all remember, who was texting pages, all kinds of things. And there was this real sense that the House Ethics Committee did nothing. And the reason is because you're policed by your colleagues. So it's like coming in front of a judge who also happens to be your brother-in-law, right? He's gonna be a little favorable to you. In the 5 years, I believe, before the this body came into being, which, by the way, is full of prosecutors who are appointed to this committee, so you're not being judged by your colleagues. In the 5 years before 2008, we had, I believe, an estimated 5 disciplinary actions that the House committee took against members. Now, this was kind of in the height of all of this corruption. 2008, this office is established. And again, the office can't actually prosecute anything, but it can investigate cases, and then it has a procedure that it follows that if it believes that the violation is serious enough, it bumps it up, recommends it to the House Ethics Committee, and then it's up again to that committee to take any kind of action.
But harder for the House Committee to ignore.
Harder to ignore because there's mechanisms that publicize the action.
Career prosecutors who really come up with the evidence. Yeah.
So this independent office is kind of like a grand jury that does a fact collection, says that there's serious proof here that there might be a violation, and kicks it up to the House Committee. So in the 5 years after the office was established, the House Committee was pressured to do 20 different pronouncements that actually had teeth and told members that they were violating laws. So it's had real effect.
And another point I want to keep coming back to this is that the office has taken action against Republican and Democratic members.
Yeah. So you look at like somebody, Jesse Jackson Jr., right, who we all remember now was trying to buy Barack Obama's seat after Barack Obama was elected president. The OCE was very much involved in that case. He's now in jail.
Democrat Mel Watt,
Democrat from Illinois, Jesse Jackson Jr.
Mel Watt, right? Wasn't he another one? I don't want to impugn anybody, but that name pops into my head. At any rate, there were Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah.
It wasn't just going after Republicans.
No.
Right.
I mean, on the Republican side, you have somebody like Aaron Schock, who was forced to resign for a whole host of campaign finance violations. But again, the OCE was involved in that as well. You look quickly, Nathan Deal, who is now the governor of Georgia, but was a member of Congress from Georgia, had ethics violations and was forced to resign. And this is where the office was really important because the investigation got bumped to the House committee. And Deal, in an effort to save his political career, resigned right before the office was going to announce that he was in fact guilty of violating rules. And if it wasn't for the OCE, that would have never been public. It only became public because the OCE has the ability to publicize these kinds of cases, even if the House committee doesn't. So he resigned in an effort to hide that from voters. It eventually became public. Ultimately it didn't matter. He's now the governor of Georgia. But that's exactly why, in that case, why you needed an OCE, because that would have been covered up.
Now, according to reports this morning, in the Republican conference yesterday, where they took this vote, again, without having any public hearing.
Well, could we talk about this vote? This vote was a secret vote on a secret meeting.
No debate.
In a secret meeting, right? That occurred on a national holiday. So if you really were trying to hide something, you have a secret vote and a secret meeting on when Americans aren't paying attention because it's a national holiday.
But oops,
and The Bachelor's on, I think.
But oops, we all learned about it. And what's been reported is that both Paul Ryan and Kevin McCarthy, the number one and number two
this
Republicans,
is such garbage.
Well,
what kind of speaker are you that you will allow a measure to the floor that you vehemently oppose?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's going to go to the floor. That is baloney.
Yeah. So they put that out there to make them look good, right?
Yeah.
But they could have stopped it. I mean,
they could have stopped it.
He's the House Speaker.
He could have stopped that, right?
In what world does a measure come to the floor that the House Speaker opposes?
I just want to be very, very clear.
You don't allow a vote on something like that,
right?
If you're in charge.
Paul Ryan did not have to let that happen, right? I just want to make sure that's crystal
clear.
He
should be held accountable. And
that's what I'm saying.
He should be forced to vote against it. Now, traditionally, speakers don't vote for bills. But if he's really against it and he wants to send a signal that he's against it, vote against it. Who cares about that tradition? Nobody but you.
So,
conveniently.
In terms of optics, right? Or in terms of, I don't know, overplaying their hand. Why would they do this? Why?
So the reason why they would argue they did this, and the other piece of this, Bill, is that the people who are leading the charge, who wanted this reform for a long time, were people, of course, who were investigated by the OCE and did not agree with the process that was taken. Now, there are some wrinkles in the OCE process. There's been a clamor, and multiple groups have called for this, to allow greater due process for these members, to give them a bigger voice. Those were kind of small reforms and tweaks. And they used that as an opportunity to shut this office down. So their argument is that because the office can take anonymous tips, whistleblower tips, and launch these investigations, they felt like they or their staff members in some cases were treated unfairly. And so these House members, pushed for these reforms.
Right. Well, the only reason it's to a certain perverse sense of pleasure I get out of this, because I think this proves that they will give them enough rope and they will hang themselves. And they're already starting to do so.
Well, Bill, we know how this movie ends. I mean, again, before the office, there was you had a Republican-controlled government with rampant corruption.
Right.
That's why the office was established.
Right.
To
Jack
try
Abramoff buying anybody who would walk into his office.
To try to prevent that.
Yeah.
Now they're taking that out of the hands of this independent body. And have you gone over what kinds of reforms these are? I mean, under this effort, which would put the OCE within the jurisdiction of the House Ethics Committee, the OCE can no longer take recommendations from whistleblowers. So if a whistleblower comes forward, they can't initiate investigation. They have to immediately abandon an investigation if the House committee says they should. They, if they come across a criminal matter, they can't even refer this to law enforcement. And finally, there's no public function at all. So the website that I spent the early parts of today on will be shut down because they can't release anything. They can't even hire a communications staffer.
In effect, they gutted it, but in effect, they've destroyed it.
Absolutely destroyed it.
Yeah, exactly.